Did you ever have one of those days when you're trying to do everything and nothing works out right? That's what today is. It's Josh from the Quick Speed Shop, back working on my Dodge truck here, and today I wanted to work on, of course it's the end of the day, it's like 9 o'clock at night already, and it's a weekend day, and I've tried to do some things. I wanted to put the rear brakes on it, and I've got all brand new shoes and drums and wheel cylinders and hardware, except the one cable that I forgot was separate from the hardware kit. So the part's buried in there, and there's no reason to take the brakes apart without that. So I can get them at the auto parts store. I just got to go get them. So as you can see, this is kind of scaly and junk. That's why it's getting all new stuff in there. But I want to do that. This is a chore. I've actually done a video. This is a Ford truck rear end I use in my Dodge. I actually did a video on my green F250 truck. That's a pretty popular video showing how to do these brakes. So I wasn't going to film it. So I stopped doing that. I fixed my spring plate from last time. If you saw the last video where we fixed the pinion angle, I wanted to make these plates, and I've just tacked on some round rod to hold the U-bolts. I need longer U-bolts, which I also don't have right now, so that's holding me up finishing that project. So bam, didn't get to do any of that. So now I guess I'm back up here on the front of the engine, and it's getting late. I've been working on the engine off camera, doing a little detail work. I've got fittings for my gauges here. I got a new electric water pump. I got a new electric water temperature gauge in addition to the stock water gauge. This is just a sweep. This one's actually got numbers on it. I've got a oil pressure sending unit I put together in the back here. Down here, an electric oil pressure sender unit that required putting a T in there and stuff, so I had to source parts to that. I had to find a nipple here for the water outlet for the heater that runs over into here. I've got a heater control I've got to fix. So this is ready to accept the front accessories, which are over here, bam, on the original LA motor. And I guess for a little bit here I can tear these off. All right, what in the world do we got over here? It's a disaster of nonsense. But we got a thermoquad. Awesome carburetor. And I got to remove all this, and we'll put it on the other engine. Got a smog pump. This is a smog 1980 LA 360. I'm not even sure where the smog pump lines go. It goes over there and down. Oh, it goes in the front of the manifold. How about that? Does it go into the other manifold? Nope. Where else does it go? Is it just blow into the one manifold? How can that be? That seems like it's insignificant at best, just to blow in the one manifold. A little bit of action. Oh, whatever. We'll not be using that anymore. What's this? Oh, it's the vent for the transfer case. Need that. Here's a pro tip. Don't take cars apart thinking you're going to put them right back together and then wait a year to put them back together. And then try to remember everything that you took apart, because some things you will not remember, some things you will remember, and this is going to help me out. This is PS air pump, PS air pump and crank. And then this one is alternator. I believe this truck has a heavy-duty alternator in it because it's got the plow package. I'm not sure the amperage. Probably 80 or something, maybe 100, but probably stock was like 60, maybe. Holy moly. That's not good. I want to snap that guy off. That goes through everything, but can we? Can't see nothing. Oh, no, it doesn't. It just goes through there. So if I can get this, I might be able to take that off. Aha! Give it a little tappy tap. All right, now I can take this belt off. Boom. smog pump bully is bent for some reason. I'm going to try to replace this since the new truck doesn't have smog. I'm going to try to do an idler, and I have an idler pulley. Where did it go? I had it here somewhere. Get this thing mounted in here so I can just get rid of the smog pump and just run an idler, because I still need to run the power steering pump, but there's no other pulley action there, so I still got to run a, an idler for tension. So I got a feeling it's going to be a little complicated. I'm going to have to look around it and play with a bunch of bolts and stuff. So I'm going to set you up on fast motion. Here we go. You can watch with some music. Well, that was a barrel of laughs, especially when all the antifreeze comes pouring out all over the place and you try to contain it. But I got everything pulled off here. The alternator, the smog pump, the power steering, everything. And most of the bolts go into the timing cover, which, as you saw, coolant came out, so I've got to reseal all the bolts with thread sealer when I put them back in to the new engine. There you can see where the smog pump went into the passenger side exhaust manifold right there, which we won't be reusing. You can still see coolant pulling out the bottom holes, so I've got to check all my bolts on the front of my engine to make sure I use the thread sealer on them. But I got that all stripped down here. I've already got a couple of the brackets, got some paint sprayed on them there. And over here, everything should attach just as it did. Like I said, this intake is a high-rise intake, so I might have trouble making that bracket mount here. I might have to shorten it and use this bolt here or do something else. But everything else should bolt on because this is an LA front dress I put on this engine when I put in the Magnum. You can tell it's the only way you can tell it's a Magnum is the bolts for the intake go straight down through the intake instead of in the side. This is a dual bolt pattern manifold. You can see the original ones going through the side. Magnums go straight down. And if you took the valve covers off, you'd see there'd be 10 holes in the Magnum heads. But other than that, it's hard to tell right now on the outside because everything else is made to look like an LA, including the fuel pump over here. I had to add a snout to the cam because the Magnum doesn't have a snout, so it's got a snout now to run the fuel pump. But we're good to go here. Aftermarket damper, Magnum conversion that allows the early style pulleys we bolted on. So that is on there. So I'm going to start painting up the accessories. The first bracket I'll put on is the plow pump bracket here that bolts onto these two bolts here and hangs off here. I'll take that over there. I'm just going to wire wheel it and rattle can it up real fast black and dump it right back on the engine. And we'll work in reverse of taking this apart, work around, put things back on. I love chips. Back in the day when you could take a 70 satellite and just run it around in a gravel pit and nobody cared. This is awesome. Oh, a guy torching a random barrels. Look out! That's always a bad sign. Look out! Uh-oh. That's not good for it. Well, that was fun. Never good for them B-body Mopars to be doing that. I think it's a B-body, right? Rotor satellite? I think so. Anyways, it's the next day. I took the day off from work so I could go to the DMV, renew my registration, which is good because my glass guy's coming. I can put the new sticker right on it. The glass guy's coming here in about half an hour to put the windshield and the back window in. I've got brand new rubber for the windshield, and I ended up getting a new windshield, and I got the channel, the lock to go in it. I got new rear window rubber for the slider. The existing rubber was all right, but it had, the old cab had some rust on the seam here, and I didn't like how it was all mushed over, so I got ordered new rubber. You're looking at over $100 just in gaskets, just to put the glass in, plus I think $200 for a new windshield, so glass ain't cheap. So I went to the auto parts store after going to the DMV, and I bought some hoses or belts. Got some belts. I got the belt to go here. I've hung the plow pump back on the engine. I've just horribly painted everything. I cleaned these up, flat blacked them. This has got a bunch of grease on it. I'm going to let it go because it's going to act as rust prevention. Got some of the bolts started, and I bought all 3 belts. You wouldn't believe these 3 belts here. $57 to replace three belts. $57. I couldn't believe it. I even said to the guy, I said, man, they're not giving these things away anymore. He's like, nope. I can't believe it. Almost $20 a piece for a stupid belt. So the 37-incher should go right on here and right around there. Look at that. Installed. Perfect. Now let's just, oh yeah, that'll work. Bam. But I've got to leave it loose because I think the alternator belt goes on the back first. I got to check it, but I've got to wait until those come in. But I'm over here painting up accessories. Painted the fan pulley. Uh-oh. That's all right. Painted everything satin black, or flat black. So this will go on here and pick up the water pump and the alternator of the back belt. So I got to wait on that to put that on. But I'm going to clean up my alternator and power steering pump, try to get the hoses off that, clean that up because that bolts on up top here and the alternator bolts on to that. All right, bam, look at that. New glass installed. Got the new rubber. These gaskets have that little T-lock that they put in there. Is suck it in, and I'm glad I went with a new glass because it's got the blue sun piece in there. That'll be super nice to have. This looks like a pretty decent piece of glass. I don't see any wonky stuff in it. Looks pretty good. And then we put the slider in there too with a new rubber I bought on Rock Auto. This I thought maybe this was the original slider, but when we cleaned up the glass, it says panel safety glass right there. Panel safety glass, $6.93. So when this truck belonged to the county still owned it in '93. They must have broke the window, or they wanted the slider, so they put the slider in it here in '93. But it uses the original, you know, obviously it's a size for the thing, and uses the original style rubber. So we got our slider installed, got the windshield installed. Man, the thing is sealed up, and it's going to be gangbusters. I'm glad I went with a new piece of glass, because the one I was going to use was fogged, which I didn't care really about the fogging, but it had a huge, two big wiper scratches right here in the glass, and I was like, oh, I don't really want to be looking through wiper scratches. And okay, I'm going right along here. I've put my new power steering lines on the power steering box, and since this is a 75 box, it's got the SAE lines on it, and the box from the 80 motor was metric. I got the line off there. You got the O-ring end, so it was metric. What to do? What to do? Came over here to the parts, the engine, the 75 engine that came out of the chassis. SAE box, I took the fitting out of the back of it here, and I swapped it out for that. So now that power steering pump over there is SAE. I would have just used this one, but I'm a little dubious about this here. It was empty when I got the truck, and that pump might be shot. But also, like, remember when I said about the smog pump and the idler? Look at this. This truck has an idler on it right here from the factory. So bam, we'll be getting rid of the smog pump and putting this idler on there. So that solves one of my scenarios. I've got to go ahead and get these bolts off, get all this bracketry off there. The pump down here should be the same and everything, but you can see 75, this truck still had a mechanical fan, straight blade fan with no flex. And 80, they had the clutch. And the 80 engine had the clutch fan on it. This is straight up 4-blade mechanical fan. So now I successfully converted this pump to SAE line by swapping that fitting out. There's like a spring-loaded pop-off valve behind that. I just put it back in there. I'll take this return hose off, and then it'll have the new return hose hooked to it, and then a new pressure line, and we'll be good to go. We'll be able to use that box, which is good. I got my other two hoses. I got my other two belts came in. Here, this is the new belt, and I got the other two, so now I can clean up the bracketry on this. I'm not going to use the bracketry from the smog pump. I'll use that idler bracket, so I'll just save that, and I'll clean up the alternator, and we should be able to put all this right back together. So check it out. Everything's looking pretty good. I went and got my belts. They came in, and I'm about ready to pull that idler off the other motor, but I painted up the power steering pump, all the plow pump down here I left greasy. I think I said that a couple minutes ago, but I left greasy just because it'll help protect it, and I didn't want to clean it, but I cleaned the bracket up, painted that, painted all the pulleys, got the alternator on. This alternator's been replaced. Where I see the date, yeah, 84 right there, so it's a reman unit at some point. But I got that on, got the bracket on. The Magnum heads here, they have all the same bolts as the LA engine over there, so everything bolts back on. I've got my, heater hose bracket to hold the heater hoses. And I screwed up earlier. I think I told you these are 3/4. They're actually 5/8 and 5/8. And over here on the blend valve, it's actually 5/8 hose, and then the front hose to feed that blend valve is a 1/2-inch heater hose. So what I did is I had a 1/2-inch fitting in the engine. I took it out and I put a 5/8 fitting in it. So now I can just run dual 5/8 heater lines to the heater box. I'm just going to zip tie this to the heater line hose just to hold it there, and that way I'll just circulate coolant through the heater core at all times, and just like most cars do. And you know, if it becomes an issue, I can cut the hose and I can fix or get a new valve, find a new valve, and I can fix it then. But in the meantime, I'm just going to loop them right straight together so it'll have heat. It just won't have the ability to shut it off. So got the 5/8 fitting in there. Got the power steering lines hooked up here. One thing I have to do is the support bracket for the power steering pump goes down, and it used to bolt onto the stock intake in the middle there. And as you can see, there's no bolt hole, so I'm going to shorten this and weld it back together. I'll use this Magnum 5.9 intake bolt, which just happens to be straight down, which will work out good. So I just got to measure this, take a couple inches out of it. Might need to tweak it just a little bit, but it'll end up bolting to this intake bolt here, and then it'll support the pump, because without that, the pump shakes around and it would break the bracket. Luckily, with this idler here, with the smog pump, you have a really hard time seeing the timing marks, and I think they had a separate timing mark they added down below to see from down below. But with the idler, I'll be able to see clearly to do the timing on the balancer. So when we set the timing, it'll be real easy to see. So I've got all the accessories mounted up. I got the idler off the other engine out of the parts truck. I still haven't modified this yet, but it's too late to do that tonight. But if you look at the belt there, look at that misalignment. I got an issue with the idler here, and I don't know what the deal is. These came off the same engine, but it is, as you can see, it's cocked out too far. I can't, there's some shims and stuff to mount this to the water pump, but I can't back the shims up anymore because the bolt is touching the bracket for the plow pump, and the piece for the idler needs to be spaced out so it clears that. So I don't know what the deal is with that. I mean, here's the tensioner for the idler here, so I got to keep that. I don't know what's going on with it, but what I think I'm going to have to do is, this has just got like a tab here. I think I'm going to slice the cutoff wheel, cut this wheel free. I'll probably get a piece of channel, like 1x2 channel, and weld a bracket straight up that'll move this back. I'll drill it and I'll mount the pulley to it, and I'll move it in line, and then I'll tack it and put the belt on it. So that's probably where I'm going to call it for this video. We got all accessories mounted on the front of the engine, just a little bit of tweaking left to do. Got the glass installed. That's awesome. Brand new glass. Thanks to Pleasant View Glass for doing that. That turned out great. And what else? I guess now I can work on the rear brakes. I'll fix these two issues on the engine, get all the accessories mounted up permanently, and then I think I can, if I can fix my little sandblaster unit, get the core support blasted, get the inner fenders blasted on the edges, get them painted up, and start putting the front structure on here, get the core support on. I've got a new aluminum radiator. I can mount that up on there. And then when all that's complete, hang the fenders. Bam, we'll have fenders coming off the cab, and start putting the rest of the front end together and get it tied up, put the rest of the wiring harness back in and all that stuff. So the front end would be really coming together. Oh, we've got to put the plow mount on. All that's got to go on. So getting pretty excited about now. And then with all the front end on, once I put the gas tank in, I think we could try to fire the truck up at that point and then just work on the box later. Or actually, maybe I won't put the fuel tank in because I want to work on the bed and do a lot of grinding. So maybe we'll just run a jerry can. We'll fire it up off a jerry can, just make sure it runs, then go from there. But that's in the future. I'm getting excited. It's looking more and more like a truck every video. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Take your dirty fingers and click on the keyboards and do all that stuff. And leave a comment and a like, and we'll see you next time. Bam. Putting accessories and other stuff on this old brown Dodge.